Yo, what is good, everybody? Welcome back to another video. We see the stock market selling off even more with the open coming in way lower. We're going to be testing that 640. So let's see how the SPY reacts at 640 level. And if we break down below that, we have more room to move to the downside. But we have a lot to talk about. What is happening? Why are we selling off? We have a lot of data coming out this week that can move the stock market overall. We do have September and some decent earnings on the calendar. With that being said, the S&P 500 had its third best summer in nearly 40 years. We rose by 12%. Some big changes are happening, and you guys don't want to miss out on any of this. With that being said, are we overextended? Can we have a bigger sell-off? And what about September? September is known as one of the most bearish months out of the year since, like forever basically. But we have to also talk about September seasonality and how it can make you guys a lot of money and or make you guys lose a lot of money if you guys aren't prepped correctly. We'll be diving deeper into that, some plays and some overall news. So without further ado, man, let's get started with this video. So going back to the chart of the day, like I said before, the S&P 500 rose by 12%, making its third best summer in the last 40 years, which is kind of insane. But this is coming at a time where we're about to approach the worst month in history, dating back to the 1800s. We have a lot going on this month. I think potential rate cuts can indeed bring the market up in September for this month if we can get those rate cuts, but it really just depends on when the rate cuts happen. Basically, like if we're at all-time highs, it doesn't really look too good, but then if the market isn't really pumping too much, it can look a little bit better overall for the market to say. And also, we do have some data coming out this week that can move some things as well. So honestly, man, there's so much going on. So if we look at the S&P 500 monthly performance, we have been doing pretty well for the past 4 months. With that being said, with all that data, it did show that August is normally bearish overall, but we did see that August was supposed to be bearish, but we did close up green this August, which is pretty decent for data, I guess to say for data's sake. But with that being said as well, for the past 4 months, we have been green and we are looking a little bit more overextended. And we could probably lose some gainers in this month of September, but we have been pretty bullish for the past couple of months, especially with that April lows that we had. We bounced up and honestly beat a record there too by gaining all of that those losses back. Basically, March wasn't really too good as well, and honestly, volatility was kicking up. But with volatility kicking up, man, we will have, cheaper options for those option traders out there. I'm personally an options trader too, and you can make a decent amount of money off of the VIX index in general, but we are spiking up like pretty decently well. And we've been spiking up for the past couple of days with the VIX. So keep VIX on your radar because you can make a decent amount of money off some options and or just buying shares. But with the VIX going up higher, you can see the stock market sell off a little bit more, but you can also have option trades a little bit cheaper to say. First link in the description below, I have a bunch of courses to help you guys become more profitable. So go check out these courses with that code down below. You guys can get 50% off and the courses are already relatively cheap. But if we go back on the SPY, man, we have been selling off and Friday wasn't really a good day as well. But we do see SPY that we did have a big sell off Friday. I did announce this on my X, so go check that out. We kind of caught it a little bit early. But with that being said, we are just seeing some profit taking, and it was before a holiday, so some decent profit taking was taking place basically before the holiday, and not too much of buying the dip seen. And people are showing their fear of September overall, so they're just locking in the profits from those 4 gaining months. And honestly, man, it is probably a smart idea, especially we're going to be showing a little bit later of what Tom Lee said, but not much buying of the dip. Like I said before, we did have a little bit of, an up and down trend after that big sell off. But honestly, today, as we can see how it opened, we sold off a fat amount. And seeing that in pre-market hours isn't really too good as well. Honestly, if you guys had some put options, you guys made a decent amount of money off that. But also, man, the markets did open up lower, like I said. So one thing to keep on watch is how the market opens up the first hour of market, because honestly, we see the biggest moves within the first hour. And honestly, man, with how it's looking right now, if we break below that 640, we're probably going to see it go all the way down to like 635 or something like that. So some long-term put options isn't really that bad. And like I showed in this chart right here, man, we see one of the biggest sell-offs happen within the first couple of days, ending at around like the 7th. Then we go back up a little bit and then honestly fall back down for the rest of the month. So if this does happen, we might see, a big sell-off, maybe a big buy the dip moment. And honestly, especially if we get rate cuts, we might see a big buy the dip moment, and then you might see a bigger sell-off With that all being said, man, I am going to be watching at around the 5th, 6th to the 7th to buy some longer term call options. But with that being said, this is kind of gambling because we're just looking at data. You got to look at charts and everything like that. But if we do see some green coming in at around the 7th to the 8th, you can potentially get some call options, but please sell them pretty early. But break cuts might bring the market up even more. But like I said before, we do got some data dating back to the 1800s. So for the DJI, we do have the 1897 S&P 500 1928, and then the Nasdaq 1971, and then Russell 2000 1987. This is good data, but one thing that does stand out is indeed September and how much they fall, and is literally everyone that falls in September. We're falling, 1% on DJI, 1% on the S&P 500, almost 1% on Nasdaq, and 0.6% on the Russell 2000. So honestly, it doesn't really look too good with data in general. But later on, I'm going to be telling you guys some stocks that you guys can trade in anticipation to this if we do start falling down. So this was September historically. So we did have some decent Septembers print out, but we do have some bad Septembers as well. And honestly, they don't really look too good. And they're kind of back to back for a lot of these. With that all being said, we did have some green Septembers too. And honestly, these rate cuts can make us have a decent September. So keep that in mind overall. Last year wasn't really too bad. But with that being said, like we showed, I'm gonna pull up this chart once again. But what can really happen is that we can potentially fall off. We have a bunch of fear, and then we start rallying back up. We get like a buy the dip moment. We rally back up, and then we get those rate cuts, and then potentially we might be just flat after that, and or we start going up. So honestly, this can be a green month, but you'll probably still see some crazy sell-offs where you're wondering like, why are we even selling off? There's no bad news. Just keep in mind that September is just bearish and a lot of people taking profits. And, with investors having fear, you might not see too much of a buy the dip moment quite yet until maybe we get to some lows and then you see a big buy the dip and then it just starts stacking up and then we start going up. So keep that in mind. We can still potentially have a green September, but honestly, man, historically, it didn't really look too good. And honestly, with all the fear that we see right now, it's not really looking too good. Tom Lee is even cautious about September, saying that investors are assuming correctly to be cautious in September overall. And honestly, Tom Lee being kind of bearish or cautious isn't really making the market look good neither, because he is kind of reputable. A lot of people like him and a lot of people follow him for what he says. And honestly, some of the times he's right. So honestly, man, he's probably right about this one. So some earnings for this week. It's not really anything major. I might be looking at Dollar Tree on Wednesday. That's about it. Honestly, you guys can screenshot this list if you guys want it. Also on Thursday, we do have Broadcom. That's one that I'm going to be watching. Broadcom can move other chip stocks, AVGO. So keep this one on your mind and on your radar for Thursday after close. You could potentially make a decent trade off of that one. But honestly, there's not anything big. It's not like we have like NVIDIA like last week where, the market is anticipating it, but Broadcom can be pretty decent and can be pretty big. I remember Broadcom when they had that split, it was kind of insane. But to talk more about the stock market calendar, man, Tuesday we have the final PMI, ISM, and construction spending. Wednesday we have some speeches, we have job openings, factory orders, another speech, we have a book, and then some auto sales, but that's to be announced. And then Thursday, we have a little bit bigger of a data. I think every Thursday is pretty big. But we have ADP, initial jobless claims. It's going to be big an hour before market opens. U.S. productivity, U.S. trade. We have the PMI, ISM, and then some other speeches. And then on Friday, we have the employment report. This is going to be big. Unemployment rate, hourly wages, and year over year hourly wages. And this is going to be big an hour before market opens. So keep all of this data on your mind and on your radar, because this can move your trade that you're in and honestly make the market make a different move basically from what is at. So gold is right now going parabolic. We're about to touch that 3,500 and maybe some new highs on gold in general, but we have been spiking up for the past couple of days. And honestly, it's been spiking up a decent amount. This is a good safe haven and a lot of people are buying into it right now. So gold is one to watch, especially when the stock market falls. So I do recommend watching gold and any ETFs that relates to gold in general. And also another one that I had on my radar for this week is Walmart. We did have a big dip moment. With that being said, I'm going to be watching that $100 level. You could probably a long call option, maybe for like a week out or like trade it in a week, but make it like a month out or something like that. And then just hold it until you get to that $100 level and have that as your limit sell. because honestly, this is going to be one safe haven that people might be going to potentially. So this is one that I'm going to have on my radar. You could have your stop loss at like 96.5 or something like that. But keep in mind that Walmart can be a good safe haven, and we can potentially hit that $100 level by the end of this week. So please have Walmart on your radar, and GLD in general, and some other, staple stocks and safe havens, gold, stuff like that. We do have Bitcoin itching that 110 level, but we have been falling down a decent amount. You guys can trade Bitcoin potentially, especially if we have a fall. We have people saying that we might fall below that $100,000 level, and or you might see Bitcoin and other coins kind of rally in September. They kind of look good, I'm not gonna lie, but with that being said, we have been seeing crypto kind of follow the stock market overall, like a little bit more than it did before. So keep that in mind too. So we might have a little bit of a difference. And let's check out Ethereum, because Ethereum has been moving pretty strong. We did hit a decent high of 4.9 like last week, which was pretty good, but we have been falling ever since then. So you could probably buy some put options on this as well. And then getting over to XRP, we are falling a decent amount too. I'm personally like, if we can get down to like 2.3 to that $2 level, I might load up on some XRP, because honestly, man, we could potentially get that $3 level once again if we do fall down that much. But I'm not saying that we will, but I'm saying that's my buy level if we do get into it. And then if we go over to ETHA, it is an ETF that moves with Ethereum. And if you guys want to play some option plays, if Ethereum starts falling even more, you guys can play it, ETHA, and you guys can play option plays on that. And IBIT is a ETF that moves with Bitcoin. BlackRock has been loading up a lot. And honestly, man, this is one that you guys can trade to with some option plays. If you see Bitcoin start falling even more and or starts rallying back up, you can make a decent amount of money. And especially at the highs, you can get up to that $70 level. If you have some longer term plays, especially if you see Bitcoin rallying, this is one that you don't want to miss out on. And some other ones can be like MSTR. MSTR is a little bit more expensive, but everybody knows Michael Saylor, he's bullish on Bitcoin overall, loading up every other week. And honestly, MSTR is one to watch if Bitcoin starts rallying. And then Coinbase is just an app that people trade with, and it moves with Bitcoin. And then we also have Hood. I think Hood moves with Bitcoin, but it moves with the overall crypto. So you can make a decent amount of money off Hood. I have this one on my long term, and it made me a decent amount of money, especially with that crypto rally. We're up, I think, over 100% on this one. So that's not too bad. So honestly, man, it's not looking too bad overall. And I want to look at Apple a little bit to talk about it, because honestly, this is probably the biggest sell off that we've had so far. But on Friday, as you guys know, we had that big sell off in general. But as you guys can see, Apple was holding up pretty strong over like for the Friday day. And honestly, it was holding up strong. But then as we open up, we are falling below that 230 level. But Apple is one that I've seen holding up pretty strong. But if we do see a bigger sell off, we could potentially get down to like 225 to like 227. So if you guys do want to play a put option, it starts falling, you can make a decent amount of money on this one. So keep Apple on watch as well. But it might be a puts for this whole week, honestly. I might hold a longer term put and then finally load up on some longer term calls. I'm going to be announcing it over on my X if you guys are interested. Only if you guys are interested. You guys don't really need to be, but or need to follow or anything like that. With that being said, we did get some news with India overall. I think India wanted to fold a little bit, and they said that they'll remove all tariffs. But Trump came out saying like this should have happened years ago, and I think he basically declined it. And they are still buying Russia's oil. And honestly, there's just a lot of drama between both of them. And honestly, we might get a deal or we might not. It just really just depends. We might see if India will fold to the oil, to buying oil in Russia, and maybe buy it somewhere else, and maybe we can get some good tariffs. But right now, the tariff deal isn't really looking too good with India. And then we might even have a national housing emergency. Trump weighs declaring the national housing emergency, Besson says. So honestly, this can move the market as well. So keep this on your mind. This can be some news for next week. And then we also have Prime signups are basically slowing despite expanded promotion. So honestly, Amazon, keep this on your watch, because this can bring Amazon down overall, and it can bring Walmart up. So keep both of these on your radar. This is another reason why I'm watching Walmart this week. And then we're also seeing that Tesla sales are soaring in Turkey, and they become the number 2 brand in August. So this is a little bit better, because we have been seeing sales slowing for Tesla in other countries. So this might bring it up a little bit, but maybe not too much. And looking over at Tesla, Tesla might be a good selling opportunity too. We can probably see Tesla down to like 320 to 325 next. So keep Tesla on your radar to the downside as well. But with that being said, man, good luck trading this week. Do not overtrade. What I recommend is whatever you trade normally. Let's say if you're trading, your day trade allowance is like $1,000. I recommend trading 500 just to be cautious. Just be careful trading this month. This month is going to be hard, but we're going to be coming out with a video very, very soon on when to buy those longer term option plays. You can potentially 100x, maybe even more, not 100x, sorry, 100% your plays, which is 2x, but you can potentially make a decent amount of money off this month, even though it is a bearish month. Once we get that sell off, we're going to get those dip buy situations. And as we can see in the other charts, that other months look pretty bullish overall, especially October, November, December. And there's some good stocks to watch. So honestly, stay tuned for that. Follow me on X. I post daily and I post like literally all of the news pretty early, sometimes earlier than other news outlooks. And I give you guys some plays and the plays that I'm getting into. So don't forget about that. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Good luck trading. Peace out.